Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Eventus podcast. I'm Tom Hughes.
Pharaoh.
We are here. We're here in the back of a car right now doing this. And we're just here to have a good time. This is kind of impromptu. We don't really have anything written down, but we have a couple of topics we want to talk about today. Well, one in particular. Two in particular.
Two,
Kind of. We'll touch upon one, but, you guys know that what we like to do on here is talk about art in the world today, and not just film, but music and television.
Yeah.
Today we're going to dive into music, into the latest project by Tyler, the Creator, titled Igor. Pharaoh.
So my first impression of the album is that obviously it's not like like he said when he originally talked about the album. It's not like any of his other albums. It's not a rap album. It's not a it's not Wolf. It's not Goblin. It's not Bastard. It's completely own thing, and it's mostly instrumentals. But I think this might be one of the best produced albums of the entire decade from 2010 to now. It's just so original. Every track. It's obviously better if you pay close attention to the directions of the album, listen to it from front to back. It's every sound. It's mostly synth heavy, but I think it might be one of the best albums of the decade. What do you think?
I think the album overall. So I listened to it. So I was out one night and out on the town one night, and it was 12 midnight, and I knew Igor was dropping. So I wanted to get home as soon as possible. It was 2 a.m. I put it on in the car, and it sounded really good.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to ruin it in a car. So what I did, I stopped it immediately. Then I went home, and I parked the car, and I put headphones on. Now it was around 3 a.m. Or 3:15 a.m. because I didn't finish the album until 4. And I was just floored throughout the entire thing. The production was absolutely insane. It was really original, like you said. It was something I've never really heard before. Original. And the vocals were just strange and weird, but it all worked.
Yeah, he put a lot of work into the vocals and everything. I like how in a lot of the songs a lot of the features have very similar voice inflections to his, and he kind of makes it sound like it's one person singing the entire song. But like for example, in I think it was in what was the track with all right, yeah, it was in the track with I think it might have been What's Good or Gone Gone, where everyone in the track kind of had the same sort of weird, I don't know if I just call it edit to their voice, and if everything fit perfectly in this album production wise.
This is true. Are we thinking Tyler Creator's best project?
Yeah, and this is 100% his best project.
All right, fantastic.
One of the best albums of the decade.
Yeah. I guess that makes perfect sense. For me, all right, let's go track by track now. Let's do it. Igor's theme. This is one of my favorite songs off the entire album, because this is
crazy.
You can't open an album any better.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that was Lil Uzi on it. To be honest, I thought it was him. But yeah, I like the synth in the beginning, how it kind of sets the mood of how kind of chaotic and cool this. I do really think it's probably one of the best openers in an album I've ever heard. Other than Butterfly and maybe a few other albums, this intro is really perfect. And I do like how he kind of switches it up near the end with the synths and everything. And I think the whole song is cool as fuck.
Absolutely, definitely. Great album.
And I would have never thought Lil Uzi would have sounded cool just singing no auto-tune. Yeah. But it kind of works for this. Even though it's not the best singing. There's even Tyler doesn't sing that well, but It works perfectly for this song.
Yeah, Tyler isn't even on this track, which is not he doesn't have a prominent role in the track. He's just kind of in little ad-libs every every now and again, but it's an awesome song and a great opener. Next song is Earthquake. Who is on here?
Cardi.
Playboy Cardi. Dev Hines is on here.
I don't know. Who is that?
Blood Orange.
I have no idea. Is it a rock? What is that?
Nah, he's just a musician. he's on it. Again, offering up some really strange vocals and a really cool instrumental. The transition from Igor's theme to Earthquake is really interesting. The whole album sounds like one whole song, which really adds to a lot of the production, to the production value of the entire thing.
Yeah, and I do think like, and I'm I'm not the biggest fan of. I mean, I like Playboy Cardi. I like Playboy Cardi, but I do think that he used, you know, Playboy Cardi pretty good in this track. You know, he works well. He doesn't really say much. Obviously, he kind of just does this whole mumbling thing, but it works for this. I mean, I would have never thought I'd seen a Tyler and a Playboy Cardi collab ever, but yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, I think we should definitely move on to the next song.
All right, yeah.
All right, the song after Earthquake goes into I Think, which is probably one of my favorite songs on the entire album. The beat is so dancey, the drum and lo-fi. It's really cool. It's really different. It's something. It's just a lot of fun, and the feature on it is really good.
Yeah, it has a really cool like beat. Like I really do think like this is like heavily like kind of Kanye inspired, like especially like the flow he uses in the beginning.
Yeah.
With like, you know, I think like he uses a lot of his inspirations throughout this album. Obviously Pharrell, but like a lot of these tracks I do hear a lot of like Kanye West influence, and I really like how he uses Solange. Solange is in this track as well. I like how he uses her voice and the transition between when he goes from the main beat to just kind of like playing with the keys with the synth near I think around the 2-minute mark. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the whole album. It works really well. It has like this kind of like 90s 80s like club feel to it.
Yeah. And
it's like upbeat. You know, you don't hear Tyler like make like this whole album is like a love album, which I would have never thought Tyler would have made in the first place, but yeah, it's executed like perfectly with everything.
I agree. All right, and the next is an interlude. Not much to say about that. Interesting theme that it kind of introduces that kind of appears throughout the album, like a little motif.
Yeah. Is the Gerard Michael guy, or that's his name?
Yeah,
I think this
Gerard
is
Carmichael.
Carmichael. Yeah. He did the interview with Tyler for the Flower Boy album. Yeah, and it is interesting because like when they do use his voice, it kind of like indicates to you like where the album is going in terms of like his mindset or his relationship with this guy that he's talking about. Like at one point he's like, then you come to your senses, and then it goes into I think Magic Wand. But yeah, but this one, exactly what you run from, you end up chasing. It goes into Running Out of Time, which is really mostly just feeling. It's mostly instrumental. It's not really, he's not really singing on it. But yeah, I really like how he plays with this. And this is kind of like almost like the previous track. I think it's very like, you know, reminiscent of like, I say like maybe 70s 80s like very like cool club feel to it. But he also like incorporates, you know, like kind of like slow but also fast paced in the same song. And also like I don't think we mentioned this before, but I really like how there's like almost 2 songs within every song.
Yeah.
How every song kind of switches to another beat and everything.
I agree. Yeah. Running Out of Time is something I don't really. That's not a song I usually repeat.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty solid, and it's a good listen. You know. New Magic Wand is a banger.
Yeah. That's probably my first, maybe my first or second favorite song of the album. And I like the subject matter, how he's like kind of painting the picture of him killing this girl that, you know, is in the way of him and the man that he loves, and he kind of like paints it around like, you know, I have this new magic wand that'll take care of everything, and we can finally be together. I like the imagery of that, and I also think, I don't know if it's true, but I think that's super. You know, I feel like he kind of takes that, because I remember he mentioned before that one of his favorite rappers growing up was Eminem. I feel like that's his most Eminem track in terms of like him painting the picture of something violent but in another way, and kind of like adding that aggression to it and everything.
I get that.
Yeah,
that's another banger. A Boy Is a Gun is the next song. I think for me that sounds like the most Kanye song on this album. It's very sounds like Bound 2 in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. It's like I'm trying to remember, how does the song sound? Oh yeah. This is actually one. I mean, I don't hate any song in this album, but I probably don't listen to that too much. And I don't know why, but it definitely is a cool track. It's not one of my favorites of the album, but it definitely works well like throughout when you listen to it front to back.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I think it sounds really cool. The whatever sample he uses is really cool. He uses that in a really dope way, I think. But yeah, boys are gun.
I like how he switches kind of like keys with his voice when he says "boy is a gun."
Yeah,
I like all these like chord changes that he does are like always like they're always perfect throughout this entire album.
this is true.
Yeah.
Now going into Puppet with a feature from actually Kanye West, which is really interesting. He hides. Let's talk about how he does the features. He kind of like hides them. They're not like out in the open. You kind of have to really search for them.
Yeah.
I really respect that. I think that's the way to go if you're gonna do a feature. You know.
Yeah, he doesn't like throw them in your face like, oh, this is Kanye West. He just like kind of lets it go along with the music. He doesn't, he's not like crazy with it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And of all people too, Kanye West, like he just slept under the rug. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You think if like somebody had a Kanye West feature, they'd like blast it, but he makes sure that like, this is about the production. This is about like, my story. It's not Kanye West.
He doesn't let anything distract from what's happening in the album itself, which is something I think can be admired. And I think more people should go after that.
Yeah. It's usually when people like tell you the name of the person on the album, they're just trying to sell records.
Exactly.
But like this wasn't. I don't think his intention was for this at all. Was to sell. Even though it did sell, it was #1 on Billboard. But like this is I think the main focus of this entire album was like, this is my mindset while dealing with this issue, and but I have other people to kind of help me out, bring out the exact way I was feeling. But he doesn't throw them in your face, which I think is like, most producers I feel like should do that instead of like, just kind of like parade them around and like featuring Kanye West. It's not really necessary.
No,
really.
not at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, Puppet is a pretty good song. The next song is like my second favorite song off of this. What's Good? I think the drum on this is really insane. It's another kind of like throwback drum beat, drum pattern. Almost 90s-ish, again kind of lo-fi, and then the synths on it are kind of menacing sounding, especially the intro. It's like it's one of my favorite songs, and the lyrics are really cool sounding. Like, I don't know, it's
I'm trying to think, because like it's not really a song that I keep in my playlist, so I'm trying to figure out like what was his like, because I know every song kind of had its own like kind of message. Like Puppet had its own message in terms of like him, being, doing everything this person wanted him to do, whether it be money or attention. He was a puppet. What was this like? Do you because you said it's one of your favorites. So
it's, I think from what I got out of it anyway. So he had he said like as you said, there was someone like in the way of him.
Yeah.
I think what he's saying is like, what does he have that I don't? That's what I got out of it anyway. Because he was kind of like, what's good? Like the name of the title.
Okay.
Like, what's good with that? That's what I got out of it.
I really fuck with the synths in this as well.
Yeah.
Like whenever he like plays just plays around with synths, it's like my favorite part.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite part of the entire song.
For sure. All right, what's next?
Next song.
Next is Gone Gone / Thank You.
Yeah.
With
CeeLo Green.
Which is weird. Like he fell off. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like
CeeLo Green's fire though.
No, he is really good. Like, I haven't heard from him in a while, and it was kind of cool and you don't really know it's him.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Neither did I. But yeah,
But it works. It was super weird. Like when I first heard it, obviously I really love the song, but it's just like thinking about it now, it's like Tyler really created this happy ass like song with like,
it sounded like something from the 1960s.
Yeah.
Honestly,
it's like super happy, and it's like, I don't know, I really like how he like kind of went in that direction with this song. But like my favorite out of the Gone Gone Thank You is probably Thank You. I think I think we're talking about it earlier, the drums he uses, kind of like that rifle sound or like hammer. So I don't know what it is. It's super, super, super cool. And I don't know how he even thought of that sound. Like, I would have never thought to use the sound of a rifle in a song, but it works so well for what he's trying to do in that song.
Absolutely.
And I really like the end to Gone Gone as well, where he kind of, like I see like he does, he plays with the synths.
Yeah.
I really love when he plays with synths.
Absolutely. That's another incredible track. Probably like my third favorite track.
Yeah.
If I had to rank every single one, but yeah. What's next? Oh, I Don't Love You Anymore. This one's kind of cool too.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on it?
It's super. I thought it was super experimental in terms of his, like the flow he uses, like that I don't love you any. Like I've never heard someone that flow before in a song before, so I think that was pretty cool. It's definitely a good transition to like near the end where he kind of goes into Are We Still Friends, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
It's cool like to see like his like that I think this was a good track to kind of like show you exactly where he was at this point, you know what I mean, in terms of his relationship with this man, and like, okay, I'm not your puppet anymore, I don't care anymore, and I'm moving on from now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And then the last track is really cool. This one's definitely like the most throwback out of all of them.
Yeah.
But like throwing it back to the 70s with this one. And Are We Still Friends is really good. It's soulful. Tyler's singing is actually, yeah. Tyler's singing on it is actually like pretty good. It's not bad at all. Did you see his live performance? He was like, "Excuse my singing," and then he actually killed it.
Yeah, I really like. I think the reason why this might be my either favorite or second favorite track is because I'm a big fan of Al Green as it is. So I really like how he kind of incorporated like these like sort of Al Green-esque like sort of chords and like guitar and bass guitar. I really like that kind of like old 60s kind of like soulful feel. And also it's not even really a love song. It's really him just saying like, all right, like it's almost like he's pleading in a way for things to be okay afterwards. And I think in his live performance he said when you're done with something, you're not in a relationship anymore, sometimes the best way to fill that void is to have, maybe we can be friends, maybe we can be cool. And I think that this is the perfect way to kind of show that. And I really like how he the chord change, or like I don't know if I should say chord or like a pitch change that he does, where he kind of goes from this like he goes like super deep.
Yeah.
I don't know what to call it, but like I thought that was a super cool addition. And also Pharrell is on this track as well. Which
I didn't know that.
Pharrell is on this track, and I think that's a cool way to end the album because this whole album is really like inspired by Pharrell. Like he's pretty open about his inspirations, and I think it's kind of like, and I think I heard this on Everyday Struggle, where Wayno he said it was almost like the apprentice kind of like met the master.
Yeah.
Because like this is like his best album, and he finally reached his own like like top potential, and this is the guy that he also is like deeply inspired from, and the fact that he ends the album with him is like a super cool moment in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's the album as a whole now. Overall, I think conceptually, it's his best work. Instrumentally by far, and even lyrically, it's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, it's not like super lyrical, but when he does say something, like when he in the tracks, Are We Still Friends or New Magic Wand, I think it's like it's not like I said, it's not like vocal heavy, but he definitely did have something to say. He definitely did put work into the lyrics on this album.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. It's just a fantastic album, and go listen to it because it's fantastic.
If you had to say your favorite track, what would it be?
Favorite track is probably I think.
Yeah. If I absolutely had to say which one was my favorite, I'd maybe New Magic Wand, simply because of the imagery. I like how it was kind of subtle, what he was talking about, like the New Magic Wand being a gun and him being together again. And he kind of set this kind of like creepy, kind of like cool, like instrumental in the back as he kind of like pleads for this person to give him attention. I thought it was a super, super cool track. And it's also very, it's kind of like, it's almost like if he took the same attitude of like Goblin or Bastard and just improved upon it. So I think it was a very like Tyler the Creator, like 2012 Tyler the Creator good track,
Yeah, absolutely. All right, anything else?
I feel like there should be more to say.
There should be more to say, but
I just can't think.
Look, people just have to listen to it for themselves and come up with their own opinions on it. Personally, I think it's pretty brilliant, his best work to date, and the best kind of work I've listened to all year.
Would you say it's one of the best albums of the decade?
Of the decade?
One of the best produced albums of the decade?
Maybe. I would have to get back to you on that.
The only reason I feel that way is because, like, it's so hard for an artist in any field, whether it be, like, in film or whatever, to be completely, like, original and creative and for it to hit, like, the mark perfectly. And I feel like this is the one of the few albums I've heard that are completely original, but at the same time, it's perfect. Like, I feel like there's nothing, like, about this album that I can really say is, like, like, this should have been different, or like this should have not been different. Everything fits the mold and the vibe of this album. Amazing. And I haven't heard a producer being this creative and experimental in so long. Like, you don't really hear a lot of cool experimental kind of like music anymore. So yeah,
it's true. Yeah. All right, that's Igor, Tyler the Creator. Give it a listen, and hopefully you enjoy it. Yeah. Okay, next we have something else on the agenda for everybody. Big movie came out, Avengers Endgame, the continuation and actually the closing chapter to the Avengers saga, for now anyway. Yeah. This film is the best movie ever made. This film is excellent, actually. Yeah. To start, we're just gonna do spoilers because there's no other way. There's no other way to talk about this movie.
If you didn't see it,
then
you're broke.
Yeah, like there's no excuse at this point. This film is really excellent. So you start. I'm trying to gather my words.
So I think this is the best superhero film of all time.
Whoa.
Okay, wait. I do. I think it's the best superhero because it's so. I do think because it's so. I mean, I understand that because for the longest time, my favorite superhero film was The Dark Knight, but I think if we're just talking like superhero film, not just like, incorporating all the ideas. Like, obviously, there's a lot of, in terms of like a film, there's some like plot holes or whatever, and there's things to be discussed. But like, I think just as a superhero film, it's just so. It's like seeing a comic book. It's like everyone just shows up and. It's like the things that are happening, like spoilers, like, but Captain America picks up Thor's hammer, which is like, I would have never thought I would ever seen that ever, except reading it in like a comic book or something. And I really like how they I really do think that they did a really good job, kind of bringing everybody together and balancing, everyone's kind of story and kind of life after the snap. And I like how they handled it. They handled it kind of like in this super dark, but like. Sort of comedic way, and I think everything kind of pays off.
Absolutely. This film reminded me definitely of like reading a comic book, but in terms of like filmmaking, it's kind of like a Spielberg film where it's kind of like this adventure is happening and it's this giant kind of scale, and then at the end it's a huge kind of battle. Like if you look at the movie Jaws, like the first 2 acts are getting to know everybody, and the build up to this final act, whereas the crew of the orca versus the shark. That's kind of what this movie is, where it's a lot of build up and a lot of interesting build up. It's not the film doesn't waste. It doesn't really waste a moment. It may seem like it at first because the first 2 acts, a lot of people say it's really slow, but it's I don't believe it's slow. I think it just kind of takes its time in telling the entire story. It's what's necessary because there is the opening scene or the opening moments. It begins with how does this movie even begin?
It begins.
It begins with Hawkeye in his farm.
Yeah, with his family. And everything.
With his family, and his family are victims of the snap, and the family, disappears and disintegrates, and they're dusted. And then we cut to Tony Stark after his fight with Thanos, after everybody around him has been dusted except for Nebula. Nebula is there with him, and they are in a spaceship wandering off in space, and Tony Stark is essentially about to die, and then is all of a sudden rescued by
Captain Marvel.
Captain America. No, that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But Captain Marvel. And then they come back to Earth, and the Avengers reconvene.
Yeah.
And they find out where Thanos is. Now, Tony Stark is like, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. I'm done. He's done being Iron Man. He's done with superheroes.
And also, I want to say, like, I think this is like one of Robert Downey Jr.'s best performances. I think like his performance throughout the film, especially that scene where he comes back and he's super weak, and he's like almost desperate to not fight again in a way. I think the way he acted in this film was like it was really good. Like I think this is really top tier like performances by almost everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then the Avengers then find out where Thanos is. Yeah. They go to him, and they find out that all the Infinity Stones are destroyed, and they can't bring anybody back. And so after that, Thor cuts his head off.
He went for the head.
He went for the head, which is insane. And I kind of predicted this beginning.
Yeah, you did. Oh my God.
I did say at the beginning of the film, Thor is going to chop off Thanos' head.
Well, I don't know if you said that. You did say they were going to kill him.
I said Thor was going to kill Thanos. And I predicted it. But I didn't. And then I said there would be a time jump, and there was 5 years later. But I didn't predict. Somehow I didn't predict that Thanos would ever come back. But they brought him back in a really smart way. So the second act is 5 years, or this is kind of continuing with the first act. It's 5 years later, and the Avengers have to pull, like, they kind of find out they found out that they can go back in time, retrieve all the stones, and so they get the band back together.
But I think one thing that's important to say is that they handled the after snap world perfectly. Yeah. Like when Ant-Man comes back from quantum realm was he in, and he comes back and he kind of sees that like what's going what happened to everyone, and he sees that these big tombstones. And I really like how they had Captain America at that meeting with the Russo brothers, which I thought was a cool cameo, and how like everyone's kind of figuring out how they're gonna move on from this, and kind of like almost, I feel like, I don't know, would you say that there was like a sense of guilt as well with everyone?
I definitely think so.
Hawkeye was probably the most like that was the character they used to kind of show like like this is a real thing. He lost his entire family, and I really like how they kind of showed everyone kind of trying to deal with this individually before they met up together, and then they met up and they
meet up, they get the band back together, and they it's really interesting also to see where. Like you were saying, it affected everybody in a plethora of different ways. Yeah. One thing that I thought was really funny, that the Hulk is like thriving. Yeah. He's Hulk. He has combined the Bruce Banner side and the Hulk side, which I thought was a really genius move. Yeah. I didn't think that was like a weird thing. But it worked. I don't know how they made it work, but they did.
Yeah, I really like the little like kind of themes they add throughout the film, like how they had Fat Thor. And I feel like with Fat Thor and Professor Hulk, there's a lot of like things you can like learn. Like there's a lot of lessons in that. Like I remember I was reading this one article I thought was interesting, like how they kind of said, even though like I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but like Fat Thor, even though he was like super depressed and alcoholic and whatnot, I thought it was really cool how he kind of at one point just embraced it. And he was still Hulk, you know what I mean? He still had the power. He still could pick up the hammer. And I really like how they handled the themes. And also Professor Hulk, how, I see some people that say they had a problem with Hulk, but I really think it's cool how they kind of, Bruce Banner, they let Bruce Banner finally figure out how to embrace these both sides to him. And I feel like there's a lesson in that as well, too.
Absolutely. And he was the one to bring everybody back at the end, essentially. So they so the Avengers go off into separate time periods, and they start their journey to retrieve the stones. The first place they go to is New York in 2012, where you're in the original Avengers movie, and everything is happening. Like the aliens are attacking, and they retrieve the Mind Stone, the Space Stone, and the Time Stone, and that the whole sequence was really cool, where Hulk meets the Ancient One from Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. That was really awesome. The Captain America fights the past version of himself, and also sees like people from the Winter Soldier. They almost do the elevator fight, which was an awesome.
It was super cool.
Yeah, that was so fun.
And I thought it was kind of genius how they somehow found a way to kind of like show the audience again, like, oh, remember this film, or remember this film, or remember that moment. You know, it's like, especially for the end of a whole like trilogy, I guess you call it. I thought it was super genius. I would have never thought of that, to like go back in time and literally go through each movie, even Guardians of the Galaxy when they had him singing.
That was the funniest scene in the film to me, where War Machine and Nebula knock out Star-Lord as he's singing "Come Get Your Love" by Redbone.
Yeah, that's such a genius way to like to kind of like you know, I guess I don't know if I say nostalgia, but kind of nostalgia in a way, like, hey, like, you remember when you made this film, and I don't know, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what happens after that?
Yeah, what does happen? I think Thanos figures out that they're, you know.
Okay. Right. So after that, they kind of we see Thanos from the past, and this is how they bring back Thanos. He's now alive, and he knows that the Avengers of the future are coming back in time to get all the stones.
Yeah.
And so he uses Nebula from the past to manipulate Nebula from the present in order to find out where they're going and where they are and where all the stones are. Which I thought was a really brilliant way of doing it. I didn't know, after Thanos' head got chopped off, and I realized I was right about the whole thing, I was like, wait, but like, now it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know? So the screenwriters did a really brilliant job with bringing him back. I would have never thought of that, to be honest with you. This movie's just full of moments like that. Like, I would have never thought of doing X, Y, and Z. They really thought of everything. Anyway, one of my favorite scenes was when they lost the Space Stone. Loki disappeared with it. And so they went even further back in time to the 1970s, where Tony meets his father, and Captain America sees Peggy Carter through the window and can't speak to her.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful scene, and Tony gives one last like thank you to his dad, just like, you know, because he wouldn't see him ever again. And yeah, that was something that it was actually at that moment I was like, well, yeah, Tony Stark's definitely gonna die now. No, yeah, I think everybody did, but like, it's just like,
it was a cool way to end it.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was still, yeah. Oh yeah, Tony has a daughter, and like, you can tell that everything is like, it's all kind of coming to a close for him, but it's expected, but still satisfying to the audience, I think, for sure. You know, everybody kind of expected it, but you know, it's just a good way to, you know, bring his arc to a close.
Yeah, even with when Pepper is his wife's name. I really like, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I really like how they also ended his sort of storyline with his wife coming to help him out.
Yeah.
And sort of putting on her suit. When she came out with the suit, that was one of my favorite parts, because you don't really see, you've seen the suit before in like, I think, some of the older movies, but you've never seen it like this, and like this form of CGI that we have now. It looks so cool.
Let's get to that part right now. So they get the stones back. The Hulk snaps everyone back to life. And Thanos from the past is now in the present. And he destroys Avengers headquarters. And it looks like nobody made it out alive, but we see Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man. They see Thanos just kind of waiting, and they go ahead and make the jump on him. And that scene alone could have been the entire third act, just the three of them going at Thanos. But they did, like, the Russo brothers did so much. They did literally the most. Captain America picks up the hammer, and, you know, he's kind of destroying Thanos. And that shot where Thanos' army comes, and Captain America's standing by himself, and he's just facing off. You know, like, if no one else came, he would have definitely wanted to take them all on by himself and die trying. Like, that's what that frame is just all about. And then everyone comes back through all the portals and everything. It's just a bunch of people on the screen. There's so many actors in this movie. It's just like, there's just A-list actors. Just the budget probably just went all to them. It was just so many people appearing, and it was insane to see everybody together. And like you said, Pepper Potts has her suit on. All that, it was really cool. and then they just like, and it's just this giant scene where like it's just a giant battle, and it is just immensely satisfying, the entire thing.
And one thing I kind of want to talk about with the Fat Thor thing is that, and this is kind of going backwards a little bit, but I like how they went with his arc with him meeting his mother again before she died, and she kind of tells him like, this, I don't recognize you, this isn't who you are, and he kind of like hears that. But so when it leading into that the last fight where he's like wielding the hammer and everything, he's like in his ultimate Thor form, but he's like still fat, like I mentioned earlier. And it really, it's just really cool to see, and it's a big risk. Like, I feel like if they didn't pull it off that way, it would have been super corny and kind of weird. But I really like how they kind of like add these like interesting personal like triumphs between everyone. And you know, also like I said earlier, like probably my favorite scene or part of the movie was when Captain America grabs the hammer. Yeah, that was such a cool scene, and I think that was a perfect way to end, like put that in the last movie, end the movie. You know what I mean?
It's so true. Absolutely. So many satisfying moments, so many moments you didn't think you would see, but hoping you would see, and then you see him. And it's amazing. Like Spider-Man carrying the Infinity Gauntlet, Black Panther just running through everybody. And then Captain Marvel comes in and just kind of like destroys everything. Yeah, and then Tony Stark wields his own gauntlet.
Yeah, which I thought was cool as fuck, dude.
That was insane.
I never expected that.
And then snaps Thanos and his army out of existence and saves the entire universe, and he dies.
Yeah, that was definitely a pretty like emotional scene, but I like how they kind of like Pepper, she kind of eases him into death in a way. She kind of like reassures him, like, okay, you finally did it, you finally did what you needed to do, it's okay, like, you know what I mean? It's a super emotional scene. And also they had, you know, Spider-Man, who I, you know, I've never been like, I'm not in a really negative way, but I've never been the biggest fan of this Spider-Man for whatever reason. I don't really know why, but I do like how they handled him in this movie and how his interaction with Iron Man before he died and when he was dying. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, all of the people that Iron Man has been very close with, like, you know, War Machine was there, and you know, Spider-Man and Pepper, and they all kind of said their goodbyes, and it was really beautiful. People were definitely crying in the theater, kind of obnoxiously, the first time I saw it, and the second time I saw it. It was ridiculous, but again, it was satisfying. Even though I did kind of expect it to happen, just because like it only made sense. But like, you know, it was definitely satisfying. And then the funeral scene was definitely something that was, you kind of just like understand how big the universe is at that point, because they kind of go see everybody, and it's like, wow, that's really crazy that this has been going on for this amount of years. And I love the scene with Jon Favreau and Tony Stark's daughter. That scene is really adorable. It's actually really sweet.
And the hologram where he says the I love you 3000 to his daughter. This is a super cool scene. I really love that scene.
Absolutely.
And another end of like an arc or whatever that I really liked was the Captain America, where he goes back and he finally dances with Peggy and everything, and he kind of grows old, and he gives the shield to? He
gives his shield to Falcon.
Yeah, Falcon. Which I thought it was cool. Like I've read some things online, people saying like they don't want him to be the new Captain America, but I feel like he's the perfect person to do it. I don't understand why that's not a good decision. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was super satisfying. How, you know, that was probably the best ending to a Marvel movie too, where he's dancing with Peggy. It was super like
that one gave me like the chills. I was just like, oh, that's like a really perfect arc. Like, it's a perfect callback.
And for a superhero film, like, you would expect some crazy ending with like, you know, someone flying up into the sky or something like that,
or like a new villain coming out.
But this is just. No, he's just dancing.
Yeah, like subtle and quiet.
And you know exactly what it is. You know exactly why it's important and everything. It was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. That ending was absolutely beautiful. And I saw like an interview. I forget, was it GQ or something, or Esquire? The Russos talked about like the arcs between, like the paralleling arcs between Iron Man and Cap. Is that Iron Man needed to be selfless. Yeah. While Captain America kind of, you know, was selfless throughout his entire life, kind of needed to settle down a little bit. So that's kind of, their arcs kind of go in the opposite direction, where Tony makes the ultimate sacrifice, being himself, and then Steve just kind of like he kind of goes his own way. He finally finds happiness, which that ending for me was just perfect, because
he finally like focuses on himself.
Exactly, he gets everything that he actually deserves. Like in the whole Hammer, like he's worthy of that ending. That's kind of what all of that showed, and to me that was just done really well. It was a great service to the character, and it made perfect sense for the story as a whole.
I couldn't see this ending any other way. Like I feel like this is the perfect way to end everyone's arc. And did they touch on anybody else's like ending? Like did they touch on Hawkeye or anybody?
For Hawkeye, everything kind of goes back to normal for him.
Family,
Hulk, there's some, he's probably just going to be the Hulk now.
Yeah, he's just that's who he is.
Yeah, and Thor's going off with the Guardians of the Galaxy. We're going to see more of him.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
he goes back to Asgard or something.
He's going to do something, yeah. And
I really like Valkyrie too.
She was used
super
really
cool.
well in this movie.
That was
so
cool when she came out on the little horse or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't expect her to like have like play like a big part in like that scene, but like, wow, she was really awesome.
And did you think that part was corny? When all the women came together, I didn't think. I thought it was cool.
I thought it was cool. Like, why not?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna do it, then do it. You know.
Yeah. I heard the argument behind that. Black people thought it was corny because they were like, Captain Marvel could have done it herself. Like, is she really? Which is true. Like,
yeah, she could have.
But it was just like it's a movie.
Yeah, like exactly. Like, who cares?
We're talking about Captain Marvel. She shoots freaking lasers out of her hand and shit. Like, it's supposed to be like it's a cool moment. I thought it was interesting, like how they had everyone together.
Yeah. Like, why not? You know what I mean? Like, this is probably the last time they're all gonna be on screen together. Yeah. They don't even have Black Widow in that, but still, she died.
She would have been cool in that.
Yeah, that would have been cool. But like, what was she gonna do? She doesn't do anything. But yeah, I mean, in conclusion,
she's gonna shoot.
Yeah, she's gonna use her gun. Yeah. In conclusion, great film. Satisfying ending to the entire series. A lot of fun. Definitely a great adventure film, a great time travel film, and just overall a fantastic superhero film, and just an overall great film in general. It gives you everything you want. With these characters, and to the people who invested in this entire franchise and to this universe, it's kind of like a nice thank you to them. And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I pretty much think the same thing. Like I said earlier, I really do think it's the best superhero film of all time, simply because of like how well they handled everything in the film, with balancing kind of like the comical, like sort of like funny stuff to the serious nature of everything, and how they and plus it's like you said, it's just super satisfying. Like, they had everything you wanted to happen in it. They had Thor picking up the hammer, and they had Professor Hulk, which you would have never thought we would have seen in a Marvel film before. And I think they handled Hulk perfectly. I know there's like some people that say they wish he would have been more of like the 2012 Hulk, where he's like kind of crazy, but it was I think they ended his arc pretty well. I think you pretty much said it all. It was really just a perfect superhero film for me.
Absolutely. All right. We're kind of running long on time, so we'll cut it off here. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Thank you for listening to the Events Podcast. I'm Tom Hughes.
Pharaoh.
All right. Thank you for listening.